Okay, so this is an incredibly hot button issue within the Democratic Party, even more so as so many from the Bernie Sanders camp feel that they were shortchanged by the party in 2016. I want to bring in Ed Espinoza, former DNC Western States Director, also a former Democratic superdelegate, and CNN political commentator Maria Cardona, who remains a Democratic superdelegate. All right, good to see you both. All right, so Maria, you first. Do you like these changes?
Yeah. I do, and I was also a member of the Rules and Bylaws Committee, Frederica, and we met for various days for more than 80 hours to figure out how we were going to implement changes that ensured that not even the perception existed that automatic delegates were going to change any outcome. But I want to be very clear on one thing, Frederica. Automatic delegates, or so-called superdelegates, have never swayed an election. They have never been against the will of the people. They never voted against the majority of a nominee that had the majority of pledged delegates. So in other words, superdelegates have never decided who the nominee is going to be. They won't now.
Because that kind of is the inference,
isn't it? It gets rid of the perception.
Yeah, wasn't that the complaint?
That's the perception that we wanted to change. Yes, exactly. But that's why I want to be very clear that even though that was the perception in 2016, that was not the reality. We never voted for anything up until the convention, and at the convention it was very clear with pledged delegates who was going to be the nominee. But the implementation of these changes are very important, Frederica, because we don't even want the perception that superdelegates swayed anything one way or the other, because we need young voters, we need diverse voices, we need everyone who may not label themselves as a Democrat but agrees with our values to be voting with us and to trust in that process.
So was there that kind of unanimity, today, in that meeting, Maria? Was everyone, on board with these?
The vast majority were, Frederica, and to underscore Adam's point, we were actually very nervous this morning, thinking that this was going to be very contentious, that this was going to be very close, and that there were going to be stories coming out of the meeting that Democrats were divided. So I was thrilled, and I want to, say congratulations and thank you to Don Fowler, who was the head of the opposition of these reforms, to essentially say, look, it is clear that the overwhelming number of members of the DNC support these reforms. Let's move forward and just vote by acclamation to make sure that we go out of here and that our focus is to win elections and to get Republicans out of power and to get rid of Donald Trump in 2020.
So then, Ed, what was your read on all of this from the need to the outcome?
Yeah, so I think Maria hits the nail on the head here in that superdelegates have never changed the outcome of an election, which kind of underscores the fact that if they haven't changed the outcome of an election, then why do they need a vote in the first place? I'm saying this, by the way, as a former superdelegate who enjoyed a vote at least one convention. And, it really didn't make a lot of sense. Superdelegates still retain an enormous amount of influence in the party. These are the party luminaries who guide the process year in and year out, regardless of whether or not there is an election. And this change that came through today is something that Democrats have been struggling with for a decade. When I was a superdelegate in 2008, that was the first time those votes became something in the primary process where it really hit fever pitch. And you remember a lot of the back and forth between the Clinton people and the Obama people. That we had a chance for reform in 2009. Shortly after that, we got a little bit. We didn't get enough. What happened today was a culmination of a decade's worth of work. I'm proud of the Democratic Party for making this change. Maria was right. It's an important message we send to the voters. These primaries, these elections, they're not as much about the candidates or the party as they are about the voters. And today, they sent an important message saying that the party agrees.
So then, Ed, while you're saying, this was good, you're in total agreement with, the evolution of this vote and the outcome of the vote, but then does that mean that you're also in agreement with Bernie Sanders and many of his, supporters who said, superdelegates just had too much power and they were kind of, setting the stage for the outcome of the vote and removing some power was necessary?
I don't necessarily agree with that, because remember, Clinton also had the lion's share of superdelegates in late 2007, early 2008, and it didn't go her way. The tide during one of these primaries can change quite a bit, and in fact, you saw the tide change with Bernie Sanders when he was able to pick up steam late in the primary cycle in 2016. So whether they had too much power or not enough power, I think is really kind of a moot point at this point. The thing that's important is that they don't have a vote anymore. And that is what not only the Bernie people wanted, but in the end, the institution wanted as well. And on the first ballot, look, in the case of a tie, you got to break a tie somehow. You know, I'm a soccer player. You got to break a tie in soccer with penalty kicks. People don't like that either. You got to break the tie somehow. There's got to be some way.
That's
so the
correct.
second and third ballot, I don't think is as big of a deal. It's the first ballot that's really important. And by the way, I don't think it's gone to a second ballot in my lifetime. I think maybe 68 might have been the last time that happened.
So is this, a reset for the party, Maria?
I think it kind of is, especially because the issue of superdelegates and the primaries was so contentious in 2016. And I think it's really important to have that reset, because today, Frederica, the majority of millennials who agree with every single value, progressive value of the Democratic Party, the majority of them don't identify as Democrats. They identify as independents. And I think what they saw during the 2016 primaries alienated them from being able to become full-fledged Democrats. So our hope is that these reforms, these changes, will show them that there is transparency, they indeed have a voice, we are listening to them, and that we want them to be not just full-fledged representative of the values that we hold, but full-fledged players in the process from the very beginning.
And Ed, last word on that?
Agreed. Oh, no, I fully agree. I think that this is a level of transparency that we need. I think it's good for the party, but again, most importantly, it's good for the voters.
All right, Edward Espinoza.
And I also
Maria
think,
Cardona.
Frederica, very quickly, I think just very quickly, I think this is also incredibly important because Republicans have been chomping at the bit to be able to paint Democrats as being a divided party. We are not that. We are anything but. We're going to move forward to make sure that these criminals in Congress and the criminal in the White House are out.
All right. Well